So this would literally be your entire life, Christian school.
Yeah.
That matters that much to you. Why?
I think just like, I don't know, just the impact that it's had on me, and then seeing the impact that it's having on others too. Just like, it's been changing people's lives, and seeing how many people are wanting to switch over to it is just, it's crazy.
Welcome into another episode of Making the Leap. We are so glad to have you here with us today. I have been looking forward to this conversation that we're going to have, because one of the benefits that we get to have here is talking with not just parents that have made the leap, which they're the ones that are kind of getting the ball rolling, but with students that either have started early on, made the leap in the middle, but because students are so important in what's happening, I think as we talk to other kids who are thinking about or whose parents are thinking about, maybe we're going to move you into this school, or maybe we're going to change things up. That's a hard place to be for teenagers specifically. And so
we get comments more, I think, than any other show when we have actual students on the show talking about their experience in Christian education.
Right, and what they want to do with it and where it goes. And is it only about Christian education, or is it just about, I don't know, just kind of forming that whole person kind of a thing. So really, really excited today to have Janie Wilson with us. Janie, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thank you. So excited.
I've been looking forward to this. I know her mom. And so when I was talking to her mom about having her on, I happened, like, within that same week to run into Janie at Target.
Oh,
I was
yes.
like, hey! And so it just kind of made me laugh, like, just pull her aside and say, your mom thought this, but I want to verify with you. But my real impetus behind finding you and talking with you today is because I got to hear you and your mom share a pretty powerful testimony to what God has done in your life through Christian education, through the people you've come across. And that was at a Raise Up, Rise Up event, which was hosted by Maddie Sam and now Maddie Cottle, who we had with us about a year ago in February in 2023.
She kind of started her own women's ministry project.
Which we have in an episode, if somebody wants to check that out. Like I said, I think it was episode 45. And from there, I've gotten to hear some just amazing information and testimony from people like you. So I'm so glad today to talk to you.
And we should reset that we first met you as parents of a daughter who we put into Christian school. You were, I think you said a junior and then a senior.
Mm-hmm.
You were leading the class at that time. So we actually saw you speak in front of the parents and everything.
Yes.
So you were someone, when we were brand new to Christian education, you were sort of a leader in the school.
Yes.
But that is not how you started
within
school.
No.
And so that's where I kind of want to start, because it blows my mind knowing what I know of you now, and hearing the background information a little bit. So if you would not mind sharing just a little bit about how you started at the school that you graduated from, but also what was your big struggle going on throughout that time?
Yeah. So I started there in kindergarten. My brother was at a public school in the area, and my parents, they were trying to look and see where I was going to go, and I told my mom, I was like, I want to go somewhere where I'm going to learn about Jesus. And she's like, oh, okay.
And were you
on your own? That was something you just said on your own.
Yeah.
And were you guys a church-going family at the time?
Yeah, we were in church, but my parents were new believers.
Okay.
And so I just told them I want to go somewhere, learn about Jesus. Yeah.
That little.
Yeah.
Which I love. Like, that gives me goosebumps, because
Was that because, I don't know if you remember at that age, but was that because you think you were influenced at church?
I think so, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so my mom just searched up on Google Christian schools in the area. So she sent me there, and actually had a teacher there, Mrs. Klein. She was the best, and she was the strongest Christian person that I know. And so she really impacted me in kindergarten. So I was just a shy, quiet little person. I cried every day when my mom had to leave me at school. But then I loved this school all the way up, and then it was about 4th and 5th grade I really started to struggle with some anxiety, and my mom could not get me to school. I was always sick, which I wasn't, or I was I always had a stomach ache, or the principal at that time, my mom worked there, so that didn't help either. She was right there. I could walk to her office. So I had really bad anxiety, and I'd just sit and I'd stay home because I was sick. So I'd sit in a dark room, wouldn't get out, it was really bad. And so then, like,
may I interrupt on that point
Yeah.
for just a second? Because
this is the part that I think is
you're
just
a
interesting.
very young girl at this point.
yeah,
You obviously had Jesus on your heart at a very young age, and yet
Loved
you
the school.
and loved the
Yeah.
school, wanted to go there,
Yeah.
but were battling anxiety. And I don't know that everybody necessarily computes because they think, well, you're doing exactly what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right. So that is something that obviously out of your control. Can you
Yeah.
explain that? Because I think a lot of kids deal with that today.
yeah. I think so. I knew that I loved the people. I had great friends, loved the school, but I think really like the devil was taking a hold on my life. Like he didn't want me to be there. He didn't want me to be getting the Christian education, having the good friends, being involved, all of that. So I think like even though I wanted to be there and like I knew I should be there, it was to a point to where like I just couldn't control really like what was happening.
That makes
So
sense.
yeah, so then it was like 4th and 5th grade. I was super sick all the time. I missed a lot of school.
Yeah.
And so then about 6th, 7th grade, like middle school, I was still struggling with this, but like I'd got on some medicine to where I was rational at least, so I was there. I was still struggling, but I was still there. And so I think I talked about this at the women's conference, but I really just had to make a choice. Like I'm going to do the hard things. And so even though it was hard to go to school, I went. I had great friends. Everybody was praying for me. Like there's no better place to be than at that school.
That's something when you say that, you can do the hard things, but everybody was praying for you. And that is the part that I always, when I hear people in your situation or people that are struggling that are Christians, number one is just because you've got that belief doesn't make it easy. It doesn't pave the road,
No.
right? But at the same time, when you have those hard things, especially at a Christian school, I feel like you have a great community, or hopefully you have a great community around you. And you did. Can you share a little bit about what that praying for you? I think people say that all the time. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you. What did it look like for them to be praying for you?
And how
Yeah.
old were you at this point?
This point I was 12 or
12-ish?
13, yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, you're 12 or 13, and you've decided, I'm going to power through this with the help of friends praying.
Yeah.
That's still a very mature thing to think at
As a
that
12-year,
age.
right?
Yeah.
We have to remember as adults, right? To remember.
But so what did that
what does
mean?
that
Were you
look
conscious
like?
of what prayer and praying for you meant?
Yeah, I was. It was a more like my friends knew what was happening, so they would help me. But it was a lot of like my mom's friends and like older teachers at the school that would be praying for like my mom to help me, or praying for like the struggle that's in the family. Like it was a lot of older women that were helping and praying. So that was really helpful.
And it sounds like intercessory prayer too, which is something that I think as, again, one of those things I was not even really familiar with at all until we started changed up at church a little bit, and then also had our daughter starting here, where I started to learn specifically it is more than just saying, well, I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray. You know, you're praying, like you said, for your mom to know what to do, for your dad who has to support your mom, for the principal who has to handle an employee and the child, right, who has to do these things. That's a really powerful statement to make.
Do you suppose that if you had, I know there's no way to know this for sure, had gone to public school and not gone to a Christian school, would you have still, do you think, battled this anxiety?
I think I would have. I think it would have looked a lot different.
In what way?
Probably. Like, I think since I wasn't in the Christian environment, being like a leader and all this stuff, I think that the devil wouldn't have had as strong of a hold on me with it. So I think it wouldn't have been as big of a battle, but I think it would have been a longer battle. Like, I think I would have had to keep fighting it instead of just, this is what I'm going to do. Like, the Lord's going to stop this.
Would you have had the support system, do you suppose?
I don't think so. No.
I think that's just the part that kind of blows my mind, because I do know counselors in public schools. I know teachers, and they're good people. They work hard, but I think they're combating a lot outside of just faith-based issues.
This is something that I think a lot of people would presume we as Christians and who advocate for Christian school, a lot of people would think we don't believe that kids have anxiety when they're in Christian school.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Right. Yeah.
You're evidence of that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't have people believe that just because you're a believer, you don't struggle with real mental problems sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And what would you have people know about that? Because I do think sometimes, maybe even as Christians, we are a little guilty of, well, maybe we're just not quite holy enough, and if we were, then we wouldn't battle these things.
Yeah.
I bet you've come to understand that's not true.
Yeah, I think I've realized, I said this at the conference, but like it's not going to be pretty. Like you're going to cry. You might have some really bad days, but if you just like keep doing the hard things and you have the Lord with you, like you're going to make it through. And to be a Christian, like it's not going to be perfect.
Yep.
So like you're going to struggle, you're going to have awful days, but you're with the Lord, so
May I be personal about the medicine for a minute?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if it is, so forgive me if it's personal. I don't mean for it to be. Did you continue to take medication? Are you still on it today? Was it just for a period of time that you took it?
Yeah, so my mom started me, I think it was in like 5th grade, but the doctor like suggested a certain dosage of it, and she said no, we're doing like the smallest amount just to get her to where she can actually think straight and like go to school. So yeah, I'm still on it, but it's still super small.
Would you notice it today if you were not on it?
I don't really think so. I think after time I'd probably get a little like overwhelmed, but I don't think it would be anything like it was.
Yeah. It's just interesting because this is something that, I mean, even, adults will talk often. I was just talking with our pastor not too long ago about this. And again, it's that stigma of people that struggle mentally. I mean, whether they're Christians or whether they're not, that's just a real thing that I want to drive home, that we're not suggesting that Christians don't struggle with these sorts of things. You're evidence of that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people are like, oh, no medicine at all, nothing of this. But like, the Lord will help you, but sometimes you need a little something to be able to think straight before the Lord can help you. Like, I think sometimes you just need to kick the edge off of it. And like, yes, that's not the way to go, to only have medicine to help your struggle, but also to rely on the Lord once you can think straight.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people would say doctors and medicine are certainly a creation of the Lord as well.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. So when you're in middle school, you know people are around you are praying for you. You're praying for your mom, your family. How does that go then? I think it's amazing to know that it was such a hard thing that you just had to be in a dark room and couldn't go to school and do all to start. Now you're in school. And then, so where does it go from there in high school?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah. So I was in school. This was probably at this point, I'm in 8th grade going into my freshman year. And my friend, from public school, she had been inviting me to Kanakuk, this church camp, for years. And I was like, that is not the place I'm going to go for a week with no phone, no parents, no.
No one you know.
Yeah, you cannot catch me there, ever.
Right, because of the anxiety, like just you knew it was
I was like, not going. So then I'm like 8th grade, I'm like, okay, I think I might be able to do this. I think I'm going to go. So I sign up, and my parents, they were like thrilled because I think this was my freshman year, because they had a COVID drop-off to where parents could not go in. Okay. So you just drove up, dropped your kid, and drove off. And my mom's like, that's the best thing that ever happened to us. So they just drove up.
No drawn out.
They got me out of the car, dropped my bag, and just drove off. So I'm there. I have no phone, I knew my friend, and I didn't know the other 12 girls in our cabin. This was a Christian sports camp. So I'm there, and I get like emails from my parents in mail. I'm like, okay. So I'm hearing from them, but I don't know, can't talk to them. So the first like 3 days, I just cried all day. Like I didn't eat, nothing. Like it was awful, but I was still having fun because I'm like, I know I need to be here.
That's
and like,
such an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Like I think that is the part that someone who maybe has not dealt with the anxiety does not compute. Like when I'm upset, and that's it. Like I deal with the upset and I move on. So I think it's really interesting. And again, as we've said, your brain knows one thing, but your brain's telling you something else too. Like it's this warring thing. So you're having fun, but you're super upset. Yeah. And you're just trying to push through. Yeah. Okay.
So it's probably like day 4 that I finally flipped a switch and was like, okay, like I'm leaving soon. Like this is a fun camp. I've made some really good friends. And so then my mom came back and they picked me up and they're like, hey, do you want us to enroll for next year? Because like you enroll right there. And I was like, yep, sign me up. So I go back the next year, and the next year I only cried for 1 day. So that was good.
But that's huge. That's huge because it's easy. I think that's a parent thing. It's so easy or I shouldn't say it's easy. First of all, it's hard to find that balance between what you push and what you don't.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to give in as a parent. Okay, it's clearly too hard for you.
Yeah.
3 days of crying, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I could maybe tough it out for the 1 as a parent, but 3, that's hard. And I give your mom credit for knowing that was where you needed to be.
Yeah.
That was a hard thing for you to do, but you did it. And the next year you cried only 1 day and it was all right.
And I think even they realized, like I said this at the conference, like, so in the car whenever they dropped me off the first year, so I had to give them my phone, like give them everything right before they dropped me off. And I was like, that had to be so hard for them to just like take that and like see me be miserable, but like I want to be there kind of. But I was like, that's like handing over that phone is honestly what was like handing over my anxiety. Like I was done with it. I was gonna suffer at this camp, but I was gonna have fun and I was gonna be there. And I'm so thankful that I went and that friend asked me for 7+ years and then I finally went.
And that's interesting too, that someone had been saying like, you should come, you should come, you should come, you should come, and not giving up.
Yeah.
And then you show up.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
Do you think that, again, if you had it to do all over again, if you hit rewind, you're obviously going to have this anxiety and you're carrying it along wherever you go. How important was it now that you look back on it all to have been surrounded by a community of believers, teachers, and other students? Was that important as you grew up?
Yeah, I think that was honestly foundational. Like, I think getting that biblical truth over and over and over and over, how many times I heard, like, give your anxieties to the Lord, all these verses I heard over and over. I think, like, if I didn't have that and I just had these friends that were telling me, like, oh, it's okay, like, we're here for you. Or I think having all these people that knew the truth and that were instilling it into me every single day, hearing that over and over helped me whenever I was, like, able to combat it. And then now even I'm able to have that basis and rely on it and then also talk to others about that and other people who are struggling.
And I mean no disrespect to your parents when I ask this, but I ask it through the prism Christine and I share, I think, with your parents. You said that they were fairly new Christians when you first started in Christian school, right? Do you think that through this you almost sort of educated them and brought them along in faith? At the same time.
Yeah, I think I did. I think having a kid that said they wanted to go learn about Jesus at school was like, oh, okay, we're going to do that. So then they're like, okay, we're going.
They didn't really know what that meant at the time.
Yeah. So I think it was just our whole family growing up together through it.
Have you guys had conversations about, I'm assuming you have, but I guess I'm asking if you could share maybe a little bit of the conversations about faith and how it has grown each of you or how you have grown within your faith, I guess, as a connection within your family, but if you've seen them like exhibit or talk about how faith has worked for them.
Yeah, I think so. My mom and I have talked a lot about this. I think her watching me go through the anxiety and having to rely on the Lord and stuff. Well, she had to rely on the Lord too to make me do the hard things. So I think and having all of these older women like surround her, that helped her a lot. And I think my dad too, just like he was new in his faith, so he's having to support us as we're struggling with all this. So I think everybody really had to like rely on the Lord because there's nothing else to really rely on through that.
I think that's a powerful
it's
message.
Tremendous. That's been our story, I think. Our daughter now in a Christian school has, I think, really forced us to sharpen our belief system and what we believe and how we talk and think.
Yeah.
You go through school and then you decide after school you're going to continue on in a Christian college. Was that always something you planned on doing, or not going to school at all, or going to something kind of traditional and secular as opposed to a faith-based college? Yeah,
so I was looking at a secular college first where my mom worked because we were going to get a bunch of money off. Like, it was going to be way cheaper to go there. So I was going to go. And I was looking at being on the dance team, so I was like, okay, I'm going to go. Then one day I went to visit her there, and they had a bunch of all these, like, liberal signs and all this stuff that I was like, I do not believe any of this. Yeah. So I was like, we're taking a turn. I was like, let's look at somewhere else. So I actually checked out College of the Ozarks, and I was looking at that, but I didn't get in until like the spring semester. So then I found Spurgeon, and that's where I decided to go. Yeah. And you decided to do that. Why? What was your decision? Because this is something that I think is also interesting when kids go through K through 12 Christian or, jump in midway through Christian education.
they don't always decide to continue
Yeah.
in their education, in a Christian-based education. So what was it for you? Why'd you decide that?
Yeah, I think just I saw the impact that having like teachers with Christian faith teaching you that in every single subject, having that background, and I think I just couldn't see my education without that. Like having the one-on-one, having the faith in everything. I didn't really want to go to a school that didn't have that, or in the community. Like I didn't want to lose the community that I had had for 13 years.
Do you live on campus or off campus?
I live on campus.
You live on.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? Because like you said, you still have anxiety. It's not like you just flipped a switch. You still have to tell yourself you're doing hard things. What does that look like for you living on campus? How has that been handling anxiety and handling changes and growing? I mean, it's a hard time, I think, for people your age to be growing up in general. I just think it's hard. So what does that look like?
Yeah, definitely my first year, it was a lot of growing because I played volleyball, so we were traveling about every single weekend. And if you would have told me that I'd be traveling without my family every weekend in middle school, I'd be like, that's not me. So I think that was big step to be at a new school with new people, traveling, playing a new sport with new people. Like I think that was all just a huge growth period. And then now I think I've seen that since I did the hard things in middle school and in high school whenever it was super hard, that now like yes, I might get a little anxious about something, but like I can combat it and I have the Lord that I can talk to. And so I think it's just been a big growth period, but it's been amazing to be there.
Throughout all of this, K through 12 and then on into your higher education, people might say, well, you've led a very sheltered life, bless your heart. You don't know really what the outside world is, and now you're going to go out there and it's going to be big and spooky, and you won't have been prepared because you've been in a bubble.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard that before.
Yeah.
So what do you say to that?
Yeah. I think what I tell people is like, yes, you can go to a Christian school, and yes, you can go to a Christian college, and you can be around your Christian friends. But like, I always played club sports where you're around people who aren't Christians. I have other friends that aren't Christians, and not everybody at my college is Christians. Like, there's people everywhere, and even in the public that you meet, that I think having those other experiences, having other circles has really, I think, helped me not be sheltered in the Christian environment. Like I've been able to share with a lot of other people, so that's been really good.
You ever feel pressure about it? I mean, are you ever, I think the answer is probably no, but I mean, do you ever feel like, I don't know, in mixed company, there's something, I know you're not proud of your Christian faith, but I'm just saying, do you ever feel like there's an external pressure to be something other than your core system of beliefs? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't think so. I think honestly growing up like at the Christian school and stuff, being so firm in what I believe, I think has really helped me not be pressured in that.
Yeah.
This is something that we get asked a lot, that your teachers just tell you what to believe and you believe it when you're in a Christian school. Is that actually how it works?
That's a good one.
Or is it formatted differently, especially high school, right?
Yeah.
Like,
do you know how to explain what you believe? Said another way.
Yeah, I think so. In one of my Bible classes, I vividly remember, so the teacher he would tell us, okay, this is what I believe. Like, I don't know if it's the right, like you guys can believe something else. And I remember these two kids in my class, they would always argue. Every single class we could bet on an argument happening. And I think like I was so annoyed with it at the time. I'm like, can these kids just get along? Like, can they not argue? But I think now I've seen, okay, they believe different things, but like they believe the same things on the basis, like the main core things, they believe the same. And I think that's what you see at Christian school, and even with my professors, like everybody has the same beliefs. They have the message, they get like the gospel and all that, but like little things people might disagree on, and that's okay. Like nobody knows what's correct or not. So I think seeing that even in high school, no matter how annoyed I was, like that was cool to see.
I just think that's an interesting piece of it, and something that I want to make sure, whether you're in church every week and every Wednesday, and you're, that kind of thing, that you, number one, have other circles to go to, but then number two, learn how to kind of think on your own and how to answer, and probably watching arguments was a help. I'm going to pivot for a minute. You have mentioned now a couple times sports, and sports has been pretty influential
Yeah.
in your life. Sports is something also that has been a deterrent for people and families bringing their kids into Christian education because the opportunities are not
Yeah.
equal to the public sector in a lot of cases.
No.
Did you feel like you came around a lot of people who were annoyed about not as many sports? And I'm just asking just because I just like hearing people's thoughts on it because it helps other families who are interested.
Yeah.
But sports was not, when we walked into a school with our daughter, I didn't care if they had one single sport to offer. I did not care. Now, she might have cared a little.
Yeah.
We were not interested. I just knew I needed her out of the system that we were about to put her in.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't care. It turned out there was cheerleading. There were some minimal amount, but there was some girls' sports.
Yeah.
There were activities. Do you think that the school having or not having sports was as big of a deal as sometimes it's made to be? Or do you think, yes, I had to have it, or no, I didn't have to have it, that kind of thing? I'm just curious what your take is on sports within the schools.
Yeah, I think some people they go for sports. And I think that, so for me, I was there whenever I was little, and then I grew up and they had sports there. But I think, like, yes, it's not entirely the same opportunity as if you're at a public school playing sports. But I think, like, what I learned is people aren't scouting you at high schools. Like, at your high school game, they're not going to go and scout you. It's the clubs. So I think, like, what I've noticed is, yes, you can go, I think, like, any kid can go play at a Christian school, and if they're playing club ball or club whatever, then they're going to get the same opportunity as somebody at a public school. And so I think that's really good to see. And I think a lot of Christian schools are growing their programs, which is helping getting a lot more kids that are wanting to come out and they still want to play sports.
All right, tell the truth. In your entire K through 12, I mean, college, I think it's probably a given by now, but K through 12, was there ever a point where you said, I wonder if I'd have more fun or I'd enjoy life more if I were out at a public school? Did that ever creep into your mind?
Yeah, it did.
And so what? Did you talk yourself through that? Did you argue that with your folks? Did you say, I'm done here, I want to go to public school? How did that play out?
Yeah, it was like upper elementary kind of, whenever I was struggling a little bit. But I had a couple friends there was this like school that they had just opened, and it was a public school, but it was a smaller, like they selected so many kids to go to that school.
Okay.
So I was like, ooh, I want to be selected. Like, that'd be kind of fun. So I was like, can we put me in for that? So my mom was like, okay, well, like, maybe that would help her, but we didn't put my name in, and I didn't get picked or anything. So it was just like a little thought that we had, but I'm really glad that I stayed.
Did you think you were missing anything, I guess, at that point? I mean, were you looking at outside this public school? As I hear it from time to time, I think it creeps in. Just the stuff, the sports or the prom or the whatever.
Yes.
There's just stuff that looks maybe more fun.
Yeah. I think probably in middle school, I thought about that, like seeing high school people that are out there at public schools thinking like, oh, I wish I was there. But then once I got to high school, I was really thankful I was at the Christian school I was. I really didn't want to be a part of that. And I had heard I had other friends at public school, so I heard so many awful things and everything that's happening. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of that. Like, I'm glad where I'm at.
That's interesting because you still say that in an era of phones, social media.
Yeah.
You had all that, so because I do sometimes think if I could just, if we could just get rid of all the phones for everybody, you would have no basis for comparison other than word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that you talked to friends that were in other schools, had access to your phone, seeing, the snaps, the pictures, the fun, that kind of thing. And it didn't appeal to you.
Well, I think I saw the pressure too. Like, all these people have all their social media, and I think I've still seen that in all the people that are at public school, like everything. It's not, you don't go hang out with your friends to hang out with your friends. You hang out with your friends to take cute pictures and post about it and show everybody that you're hanging out with your friends. So I think I didn't want to be a part of that. I wanted to have my friends, hang out with them to hang out with them and not worry about putting on this picture for everybody.
Do you think, given that you said you naturally struggle with anxiety, does that culture add to that?
I think so,
For kids in general?
Yeah, I think definitely. The having to put on a certain face for all the social media, seeing your friends, if they didn't invite you and yet they go post, you see that, then I think it's all like I think it would cause more anxiety for people.
I think we can, it's almost like you're beating a dead horse sometimes talking about the phones, because they're here, they're around it. I don't love social media, but I have to use social media at times, and I am still drawn to social media. I'm still there. I still have to look, or I still want to look, depending on what the day is, you know. And I think it's finding that balance that's really important. What would you? There's no wrong answer on this. I just love this as a parent, because I think we did this a little too early. But what age? Looking, I call you young adult. The idea of kids is probably far down the road. When that time comes, what age do you think you would, if ever, hand over a phone to your future children, just out of curiosity, just because we're talking about the pressure, which is really important to talk about?
I'd probably say like 15 or 16, whenever they're getting ready to drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
For safety purposes?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
You don't really need it other than you don't really need it whenever you're younger.
I think if kids could hear that message from other people that are still close in age to them, you don't need that phone. Here's the problem. I think that would be a lot of that would do a lot of good.
You're able to look in the rearview mirror now at just a few years ago. You can kind of see the folly of, hey, that looks fun over there, or needing a phone. I mean, you can now see with some distance everything you thought was kind of important or maybe sort of interesting really isn't. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And I think I've seen even whenever I went to camp and didn't have, those were some of the most fun weeks that I've had, is without the technology, is being able to sit there. Nobody had it. We all you had to talk to people.
Imagine.
That was I think those were the most fun times that I had.
How do you carry this through the rest of your life? Now you'll graduate. I don't know what kind of work you're interested in doing. Have you said?
I'm getting communications and then Christian education masters. I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with that. Maybe teaching something in a school, probably.
Okay.
Like a Christian school?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to continue and now be a part of a Christian school?
Yeah.
Wow. So this would literally be your entire life, Christian school.
Yeah.
That matters that much to you. Why?
I think just I don't know, just the impact that it's had on me, and then seeing the impact that it's having on others too. Just it's been changing people's lives, and seeing how many people are wanting to switch over to it is just, it's crazy.
I think that's tremendous. Just the idea, I feel like if you're going to go into Christian education, you have to look at it as a ministry a lot now. It's not a high paying job. You're not going to get rich.
No.
It is a struggle. I've spoken to a few teachers who are like, I'd almost live out of my car and still to teach in a Christian school, because I can't fathom going back to a public school to teach, which that's a lot. And so that's all you've known. But I love that it's what you still want to carry on. You don't need to step somewhere else. I think that's amazing.
Let me ask a personal question too. I don't mean to embarrass you, but I'm curious, do you, going forward in your own personal life someday, in relationships or whatever, or maybe you have one now, what does faith mean to you in that respect?
In Christian education?
I should say with somebody, a significant other in your life someday. Is that important?
Yeah.
Is that like an
absolute?
Yeah, is that something before I even start talking to you or we go out and have a dinner, I need to know you're a Christian?
Yeah.
That matters to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there'd be no question in your mind?
No.
Yeah.
Our pastor says that all the time. He says look, if you want to make it easy for yourself, find yourself a Christian, you know, but that's not how we met either. And so
it isn't. And I think that there are a lot of people that would say, well, he's cute and he's nice enough.
He's a good guy.
He doesn't really go to church, but that's okay.
Well, I've seen that in my parents too, because they weren't Christians, but
you still know what you're looking for.
And why is that important, in your opinion?
I just think there's just so many issues if you aren't. You don't even think the same way. You have different values, different morals, different ideas of what you want going forward. So I think there's just so much issues in it.
Yeah.
I think people would be young adults would be so well served. I think we would have been better off to have had a stronger belief system. I think it eliminates a lot of problems, like you said. I mean, it doesn't take away the problems like we've talked about, but it eliminates some that you don't have to kind of, to navigate. And so it's always my prayer that, my kids will find somebody who is a believer. They may or may not, but that's always what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
And so I think it's another good message and another good benefit that parents may not know as they're thinking about their kindergartners starting Christian school. What does that look like and mean beyond the K-12 experience?
Well, and you steered it. I mean, that's kind of the remarkable thing.
Yeah.
God worked through you. Your
yeah.
entire family was guided by your decision as a little kindergartner.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's impressive.
And I don't hear that much.
No, who knows what was going on in my kindergarten head. I don't know how I even thought of that.
Maybe that's to your preacher. I don't know, your Sunday school or your,
That's amazing.
And
but
you all attend church today, the family, everybody?
That's very cool.
Wow.
I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like we have to kind of peel back and have these conversations that are they're not about big political issues that are crazy and, controversial, but this is controversial in and of itself because not everybody feels ready to make this switch with their families. Not everybody thinks it's going to be, good for their entire family, easy for their entire family. You've shown that it's not an easy path to walk all the time. And so I thank you for taking the time with us today to just talk with us a little bit about what it is to go through this and to deal with hard things, like you said, but know that the Lord is on your side.
I expect someday maybe we'll have you back and we'll be talking about maybe you're one of our Excellence in Christian Education Award winners some year.
Maybe.
We'll keep our fingers crossed. It was great to meet you. Thank you for
great
sharing
to
your story.
You. Yes, thank you.
And that'll do it for this week's edition of Making the Leap. Check us out wherever you stream podcasts or listen. I hope you will on YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating at Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate that, or Spotify. And until next time, thanks for downloading this episode of Making the Leap.
Making the Leap is a podcast presentation courtesy of the Herzog Foundation. We'd love your feedback by rating us and commenting on the show.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Making the Leap.